Hi, this is Kendall Boyson, professional life and recovery coach, and you're listening to Encouragementology, the practice of instilling hope. Hi there. Thanks for joining me. On this show, we are exploring guilt and gaslighting as we unravel the mind's silent saboteurs. This topic is as sneaky as a cat burglar and as subtle as a whoopee cushion at a royal banquet. Guilt and gaslighting. Ever felt like your mind's playing tricks on you only to realize someone else was the magician? Life throws enough curveballs without someone pitching guilt and gaslighting into the mix, right? But here's the good news. You have the power to call out those sneaky mind games, hit pause on the guilt spiral, and rewrite the narrative. Today, we're diving deep into the tricky terrain of guilt and gaslighting, why they happen, how they mess with your head, and most importantly, how you can rise above them. So buckle up for a journey of clarity and courage, because it's time to reclaim your peace of mind and say, no thanks, manipulation. I'll stick to reality. To set the stage, let's define our key players. Guilt is that nagging feeling when you've done something wrong, or sometimes when you haven't, but someone wants you to think you have. Gaslighting, on the other hand, is a form of psychological manipulation where someone makes you doubt your own reality. It's like being convinced that the sky is green when you know it's blue. Understanding these concepts is the first step in recognizing their impact on your life. At NeuroLaunch, I found some effects of gaslighting on the brain, psychological and neurological impacts. A sinister manipulation of reality, gaslighting, twists the mind and erodes the very foundation of one's identity, leaving behind a trail of psychological and neurological devastation. It's a form of emotional abuse that can leave victims questioning their own sanity, memories, and perceptions of reality. But what exactly is gaslighting, and how does it impact the human brain? Imagine walking through a funhouse of distorted mirrors where every reflection shows a warped version of yourself. That's what gaslighting feels like, a constant barrage of doubt and confusion that leaves you unsure of who you really are. The term gaslighting originates from the 1938 stage play Gaslight, where a husband manipulates his wife into believing she's going insane. Today, it's recognized as a widespread form of psychological manipulation that occurs in various relationships and settings. Understanding the effects of gaslighting is crucial in our modern world, where manipulation tactics have become increasingly sophisticated. From personal relationships to workplace dynamics and even political discourse, gaslighting can infiltrate every aspect of our lives. Its prevalence makes it all the more important to recognize its signs and understand its impact on our mental and neurological well-being. Gaslighting is like a slow-acting poison for the psyche, gradually eroding a person's sense of reality and self-worth. One of the primary psychological effects is cognitive dissonance, that uncomfortable feeling when your beliefs don't align with your experiences. Imagine being told repeatedly that the sky is green when you can clearly see it's blue. Over time, you might start to doubt your own perception, creating a mental tug of war that can be exhausting and disorienting. This constant state of confusion often leads to a significant decrease in self-esteem and an increase in self-doubt. Victims of gaslighting may find themselves second-guessing their own thoughts, feelings, memories. It's like trying to build a sandcastle while someone keeps kicking it down. Eventually, you might give up altogether. The emotional toll of gaslighting can be severe, often resulting in anxiety and depression. Victims may experience a constant state of unease, always on edge and waiting for the next instance of manipulation. It's like living with a dark cloud hanging over your head, never knowing when the storm will hit. In some cases, the effects of gaslighting can be so severe that they lead to post-traumatic stress disorder. The constant manipulation and erosion of reality can create a traumatic experience that lingers long after the gaslighting has ended. Flashbacks, nightmares, and intense emotional reactions to trigger all the potential symptoms resulting from this behavior. Perhaps one of the most insidious effects of gaslighting is learned helplessness. After prolonged exposure to manipulation and having their reality constantly questioned, victims may start to believe that they have no control over their lives. It's like being trapped in a maze with no exit. Eventually, you might stop trying to find a way out altogether. While the psychological effects of gaslighting are well documented, emerging research suggests that this form of emotional abuse can also have profound neurological impacts. The brain, being a highly adaptable organ, can undergo structural and functional changes in response to chronic stress and manipulation. One of the primary ways gaslighting affects the brain is through alterations in the stress response system. Constant exposure to manipulation and doubt can lead to an overactive stress response, flooding the body with cortisol, the primary stress hormone. It's like having your fight or flight response stuck in the on position, which can have far-reaching effects on both mental and physical health. These elevated cortisol levels can impact various brain regions, particularly the hippocampus, a structure crucial for memory formation and recall. Chronic stress can actually cause the hippocampus to shrink, potentially leading to memory problems and difficulty forming new memories. It's as if the constant fog of gaslighting is not just metaphorical, but actually manifests in the brain's ability to process and store information. Another area of the brain affected by gaslighting is the amygdala, which plays a key role in emotional regulation. Chronic stress and manipulation can lead to an enlarged and overactive amygdala, potentially resulting in heightened emotional responses and difficulty managing emotions. It's like having an overly sensitive alarm system in your brain, constantly on high alert for potential threats. The question of whether gaslighting can cause actual brain damage is a complex one. While we typically associate brain damage with physical trauma, the reality is that psychological abuse can indeed have lasting effects on brain structure and function. Chronic stress, a hallmark of prolonged gaslighting, has been shown to have detrimental effects on brain health. The constant flood of stress hormones can lead to inflammation in the brain, potentially damaging neural connections and even killing brain cells. It's like subjecting your brain to a constant state of siege, gradually wearing down its defenses. However, it's important to note that the brain has an incredible capacity for change and healing, known as neuroplasticity. This means that even if gaslighting has caused changes in the brain structure or function, there's potential for recovery with the right support and interventions. Research on the neurological impacts of psychological abuse, including gaslighting, is still in its early stages. A study on narcissistic abuse, which often involves gaslighting, found changes in brain structure similar to those seen in people who've experienced physical abuse. This suggests that the impact of emotional manipulation on the brain can be just as significant as physical trauma. Identifying gaslighting can be challenging, especially when you're in the thick of it. It's like trying to spot a chameleon. The manipulation often blends seamlessly into your daily interactions. However, there are some telltale signs to watch out for. Number 1, constant second guessing of your own memories and perceptions. 2, feeling confused or crazy in your relationships. 3, difficulty making simple decisions. 4, constantly apologizing or feeling like you're always in the wrong. 5, feeling like you can't do anything right. 6, making excuses for your partner's behavior to friends and family. If you recognize these signs in your own life, it's crucial to take steps to protect your mental health. This might involve setting clear boundaries, seeking support from trusted friends and family, or keeping a journal to maintain a clear record of events. Remember, mental abuse can have serious consequences, and seeking professional help is often a necessary step in recovery. A therapist or counselor can provide valuable tools and strategies for coping with effects of gaslighting and rebuilding your sense of self. Healing from gaslighting and rebuilding your brain recovery from gaslighting is a journey, not a destination. It's like rebuilding a house that's been damaged by a storm. It takes time, patience, and the right tools. Therapy is often a crucial component of this healing process. CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, can help you identify and challenge distorted thought patterns that may have developed as a result of gaslighting. Mindfulness and stress reduction techniques can also play a vital role in recovery. Practices like meditation and deep breathing exercises can help calm an overactive stress response and promote emotional regulation. It's like giving your brain a chance to reset and recalibrate after the constant onslaught of manipulation. Rebuilding healthy relationships and establishing clear boundaries is another important aspect of recovery. This may involve learning to trust your own perceptions again and developing the confidence to assert your needs and feelings. It's like relearning how to navigate the world on your own terms, free from the manipulative influences of others. Interestingly, certain activities can actually promote neuroplasticity and help your brain heal from the effects of gaslighting. Learning new skills, engaging in physical exercise, and maintaining social connections can all help create new neural pathways and promote brain health. It's like giving your brain a workout, helping it grow stronger and more resilient. It's clear that this form of psychological manipulation can have profound and far-reaching impacts. From the psychological toll of confusion and self-doubt to the potential for long-term neurological changes, gaslighting is a serious form of abuse and shouldn't be underestimated. However, it's equally important to remember that recovery is possible. With awareness, support, and the right interventions, victims of gaslighting can heal and reclaim their sense of self. The brain's remarkable capacity for change means that even if gaslighting has left a mark, there's always potential for growing and healing. What if you just don't know? What if someone is so good at it, or you've been exposed to this behavior for so long that you just don't trust yourself to recognize the behavior? Okay, well, you're not alone. We can help with that. The reality check exercise, spotting guilt and gaslighting. This simple exercise can help someone identify if they're being manipulated through guilt or gaslighting. It focuses on grounding, questioning, and validating your feelings and perceptions. Are you ready? Step 1, pause and ground yourself. When you start feeling guilty or questioning your reality, take a moment to pause. Breathe deeply and ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? Is this coming from something I did or something I'm being told I did. Big difference. Step 2, reflect on the situation. Write down or mentally go through the interaction. Ask yourself. The guilt test. Was I made to feel responsible for something that wasn't entirely in my control? Example. Did I really make them upset, or are they upset because of their own expectations? That's a tricky one. Really think about that. Did I really make them upset, or are they upset because of their own expectations? The gaslighting test. Was my perception or memory of events questioned or dismissed? Example. Did they tell me that I'm imagining things or overreacting when I raised a concern? Really go through your mind. Trust yourself. Trust your gut instincts. Trust your intuition. Step 3, separate facts from feelings. Create 2 columns. In the first column, list the facts of what happened. Objective events. Just write it down. Whatever comes to your mind, write it down. If it came to your mind, it could be important, so don't dismiss it. In the second column, write how you feel about these events. And then ask, do the facts support the guilt I'm feeling? Am I being encouraged to doubt the facts I know to be true? Check yourself, right? And step 4, check for patterns. Think about past interactions with this person. Do they often make you feel guilty without addressing solutions? They just want to poke a finger at you. They just want to poke guilt at you. It's your problem, but not really addressing what a solution could be. Do they frequently dismiss your concerns or experiences as untrue or irrational? Think about that. Is their stories always big and grandiose and it's always this and that? But when you share something, it's dismissed. Now, that didn't happen. It wasn't as big as you think it is. Step 5, validate with a trusted person. Share your experience with someone you trust. A neutral third party can provide clarity and help you discern manipulation from genuine feedback. Ask them, does this sound like I'm being guilt-tripped? Do you think they're trying to make me doubt myself? Sometimes it helps seeing through an objective person because you can really question your own thinking, and having someone look at it outside of the situation can be more exact. Step 6, affirm your reality. End the exercise with affirmations to ground yourself. My feelings are valid. I am allowed to trust my instincts and my perceptions. I will not let guilt or doubt control my actions. By regularly practicing this exercise, you can build confidence in recognizing manipulation and taking steps to protect your mental and emotional well-being. Over at Psych Central, I found how to spot manipulation tactics. Manipulation can happen to anyone in all kinds of relationships, from friends and romantic partners to parents and family relationships. Even work colleagues and your boss might have manipulative tendencies. Yet, a manipulative person can be hard to recognize. Manipulation in relationships can sometimes be so subtle and effective. You may wind up questioning your perception of the situation, rather than the other person's actions or motives. Gaslighting can make discerning manipulative tactics especially difficult. But by learning what to look for, you may be able to protect yourself from manipulation tactics and psychological games before they start. Manipulation is coercive and unethical behavior driven by the goal of exploiting or controlling another person for your own personal gain. Manipulative people often use common tactics to get what they want, like guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is when someone tries to make you feel responsible or guilty of your actions or decisions. Jason Drake, lead clinician and owner of Katie Teen and Family Counseling, explained that guilt trips often involve using something one person did for the other as leverage to get what they want. Some examples of guilt tripping might be, if it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have gotten through college. You owe me. I'm the one who is working all the time while you're spending time with friends. I deserve this expense. If you can't come over, then I might as well not invite anyone else that night. There's no point then. It could also look like lying. People with manipulative tendencies often lie in an attempt to control or coerce others. They may also lie to avoid blame or consequences for their actions. For example, a teenager who's been told they're not allowed to hang out with a particular group might lie about their whereabouts. They may also lie to the other parent about being given permission to go out with their friends. If one parent doesn't check in with the other parent, the teen may be given permission to go with those friends. Psychological lying may be a sign of a mental health condition. It can also look like flattery. It can be hard to tell the difference between a compliment and flattery. A compliment is given to sincerely point out something positive with no expectation of gain. But flattery is often used disingenuously as a tool to gain emotional leverage. Research from 2023 suggests that compared to flattery, genuine feedback or praise can be beneficial to the mental well-being of a person receiving the compliment. For instance, researchers found increased activity in regions of the brain's reward system after participants received a compliment. With flattery, there's often an expectation of getting something in return. For instance, someone who wants a raise or promotion might regularly praise the manager's strengths and accomplishments. It can also look like projection. Projection happens when one person claims an emotion they're feeling, like jealousy, is actually being experienced by someone else. For example, a person with manipulative tendencies might cause tension and drama, but blames someone else for creating that energy. Maggie Holland, a licensed counselor in the state of Washington, explained that projecting aids a person who manipulates in dodging responsibility for their action and helps them avoid changing their behaviors. But it can also erode your trust in your own reality. If you think you might be projecting, she suggests, pausing and asking yourself, is this my stuff or their stuff? This can be helpful for disrupting projection. It's also really important that we don't project our own values onto a manipulator, because that just sets us up for a lot of disappointment and frustration. What about moving the goalposts? Sometimes, no matter how much you show up for someone who manipulates, they will change their expectations at the last minute to keep you constantly running toward their goalposts. Someone who moves the goalposts can set you up for frustration and exhaustion. You're never going to actually reach those goalposts, and your efforts and success won't be acknowledged if you do. Believing in yourself, recognizing your own needs, and disengaging can be helpful in avoiding feelings of demoralization. Holland suggested working to understand your personal values, goals, and standards to feel like you met your own expectations. Remind yourself that you're just a human being, doing the best you can, and that is enough. What about triangulation? Triangulation can take many forms, but it often happens when a third person is brought into your communication instead of keeping the issue between the two people it impacts. It often keeps manipulative people from having to take responsibility and may protect them from feeling like they've lost an argument. For example, a couple might involve a close friend in their disagreement to choose a side. Triangulation may also involve parents displacing anger or involving their children in a conflict they shouldn't be involved in. According to a large study, triangulation is likely to occur if the following factors exist within a family dynamic: a parent who lives with depression, adolescents living with emotional dysregulation, a lack of support and connectedness within the family. Becoming aware of triangulation can help you spot it. Try to disengage from triangles whenever they come up unfairly. This means you're going to have to set and stick to some firm boundaries, but remember that boundaries are not meant to control people, but to ensure that you're still able to remain in a relationship with them in a healthy way. Boundaries are not heartless. They're actually really healthy. It can also look like love bombing. Love bombing is manipulation through excessive attention, often showering you inappropriately with gifts, compliments, affection, and time. These things may be wonderful, which can be confusing. However, love bombing is when this feels enrapturing, takes all your attention, and is excessive. It might feel great at first, but it usually leaves you isolated and makes you lose sight of who you are, explains Holland. Once you're swept away, this attention might stop and will leave you feeling like you're seeking it out or chasing it down again. If you've already experienced love bombing and are on the other side, give yourself patience and work to forgive yourself. You're not blind. A manipulative person took advantage of your normal human nature to want to feel desired and cherished. Some ways to avoid love bombing includes regularly spending time with friends and loved ones, engaging in your own interests outside of this person, checking in with yourself often to ensure that you're aligned with your own values and standards. Taylor Drawn, a licensed professional counselor and marriage and family therapist, explained that manipulation can be a very effective way to get what you want, but it can also be very dangerous. She added, if someone can manipulate you, they can control your actions and your thoughts. It's important to be aware of the signs of manipulation so that you can protect yourself from this type of abuse. While manipulative tendencies are often subtle and sometimes undetectable, there are 4 stages of manipulation. Flattery. The first stage is when the person with manipulative behaviors puts on a facade of being kind, caring, and helpful. They may act like they want to help you with anything you need, but in reality, they're just trying to get what they want from you. Second stage. Isolation. This is when the person who manipulates may start to isolate you from your friends and family. They might try to convince you that your loved ones don't understand you or want to control you. The goal is usually to separate you from people who might spot the manipulation. Third stage, devaluing and gaslighting. During the third stage, someone who manipulates may try to make you feel guilty or confused. They might start telling you that you're ungrateful or that you're making them unhappy. The purpose of this stage is to make you doubt yourself, your instincts, and your decisions. It may be very difficult to break free from the manipulator's control at this stage. The fourth stage, fear or violence. The fourth and final stage is when the person who manipulates may begin to threaten you. They may threaten you to leave you, or hurt themselves as a way of keeping you under their control with fear. It can be very difficult to break free from someone who is using threats as a form of manipulation. Let's not let the idea of rising above go unexplored. We've all heard of rising above a situation and being the bigger person, taking the high road and letting things go first. But I want you to think of another idea. Actually hovering over a situation to get a different perspective. Imagine being in the middle of chaos, drama, or anything overwhelming. Being in the middle is tough because it feels like you're surrounded. And from this vantage point, where you can't see your way out, you might feel hopeless. So rise above. Crawl up higher in your mind's eye so that you can look down on a situation. From up here, the issue shrinks. And you can take in the entire scope of the situation, seeing how things can be interrelated or even interdependent. From this new perspective and the time it took you to gain it, you can truly process the challenge and your next move. You have more control over your thinking than you think you do. For instance, trust your perceptions. Acknowledge your feelings and experiences without immediately dismissing them. Set boundaries. Clearly communicate your limits and stand firm against attempts to undermine them. Seek support. Talk to trusted friends, family, or mental health professionals about your experiences. Document your interactions. Keep a record of conversations and events to reference if your memory is in question. And educate yourself. Learn about common manipulation tactics to better recognize them. I want to point to a really important segment. Frederick Riberson on the Decoding Narcissism's YouTube channel talks about how to implode a narcissistic guilt trip game. It's important. Take a listen.
If it wasn't so tragically effective, the narcissist's guilt-tripping game would actually be hilarious. The way they present things is really simplistic. It's saying we have a situation now that is a problem, and there's a future solution which is much better, and to get to the much better solution, all we have to do is for you to do what I ask you to. If you don't do what I tell you, that means that you don't want to have a good future, and you want to have a bad situation now, which means that you are a bad person, and it's your fault if I have a problem now. So we'll keep the same two elements, now and the future. We're just going to add a bit of nuance to this. Instead of being a monolith of now bad, future good, we'll start seeing who is involved, the two people. In the current situation, both people have advantages and disadvantages, and the same applies to the future. The narcissist's trick is to only focus on what their disadvantages are currently, and what advantages they would have in the future. And they also operate with some form of transfer where they try to make their problems become your problems. They'll do this by playing your empathy, by trying to make you suffer for them, by trying to elicit these unpleasant feelings so that you have a huge incentive to make some form of change. And in the future, they'll do the same thing. They will try to link their benefits to your benefits. So you might feel happy for them, or feel good for them, or feel that whatever you're sacrificing is worthwhile because overall the situation as a whole is better than it would be otherwise. This is one of the ways that they manipulate people who have high levels of empathy. But as usual in their calculation, they are missing out you. They don't care about you. They don't care about how things might be better or worse for you. If they ask you to help them out financially, for instance, that creates a financial problem for you. They will say that overall the benefits outweigh the negatives. But of course they are the ones reaping the benefits and you are the one paying the cost. So of course it works better for them from their point of view, and your point of view is irrelevant. One of the most effective ways to not be manipulated is observe when they are trying to make their problem become your problem, and figure out how you can actually impose healthy boundaries so this is not the case. If you take their problem on as being yours, of course you're going to want to solve it, but remember that their problem is theirs and your problems are yours. One of the tricks they use is to pretend that there is only one solution for the problem, and that solution comes from you. So if you don't help them out, then they are stuck with the problem. The first question you can ask them is, let's imagine I wasn't able to help you out. What would you do then? It sometimes is possible that you're not able to help someone out, financially, emotionally, or with time, because of other priorities. Of course, they don't like that, but that's a separate question. So let's imagine that you can't help them out. Then what do? If they say that they stay stuck with the problem, then maybe respect their choice to stay stuck with the problem. Logically, there would be some other options that they would be able to follow, but if they don't want to find alternatives, then maybe consider that that's a choice. Not that there are no alternatives out in the world, but they don't actually want alternatives. If you are motivated to solve a problem, you will figure out different scenarios. Someone who pretends there is only one scenario might be incompetent, but might also be a manipulator. So ask the question, let's imagine that I couldn't help you. What would you do? And you might say, I'm not sure if I can. I'll think about it, I'll look into it, I'll see if it's possible, but I need to understand what you would do if I can't help you. Number 2, if they continue to claim that there is only one solution that comes from you, you can then point out the dynamic this creates. I'm sorry, I would feel that makes you dependent on me, and I'm not comfortable with that. This doesn't sound sustainable or healthy. By starting out by saying, I'm sorry, you remove some of the tension. You're then referring to your disadvantages. I'm not comfortable. If I do that, I won't be comfortable. You're basically attracting the focus back onto you and how you feel about what they're asking. They want, of course, all of the focus on getting their problems solved. But you have every right to say, well, I'm also involved in this. I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable. Of course, before you make any change in a dynamic with a toxic person, remember that they can harm you sometimes physically, emotionally, financially, and also with reputation. Please assess the level of danger you have and try to preempt any damage they can do so you don't get harmed. The third answer you can give actually ties in the negatives that both of you would have if something goes wrong in the future. And that might be saying, I'm really sorry. It's possible that you won't be able to pay me back, or you won't be able to maintain a healthy relationship after this. And if that happens, then I feel that would damage our relationship. So I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'm terribly sorry. I'm not willing to take that risk. If you value a relationship over short-term help, then you're willing to take on some level of suffering, some level of burden to maintain the relationship. If someone isn't willing to do that, maybe they don't actually value the relationship. Maybe they value your money or your time or your energy more than they do the relationship. And if you deprive them of it, that simply means they're going to find a supply somewhere else. So it's up to you to figure out if you want to be in a relationship with some form of vampire, or if you'd rather be in a relationship that might be healthy and sustainable. Then the next question concerns the future. So you have a timeline and you have a problem and they want you to jump over the problem. And you think, it's probably just a one-off, sure, I'll help you out. And once you help them out, then another problem occurs. This usually is the case. So you jump over that one. And then another problem occurs. And you basically keep jumping. This is the case if somebody needs help paying their rent, for instance. Oh, my rent is terrible, it's so difficult, maybe you can help me out. Like, sure I can. But what's going to happen afterwards? What will happen next month? Because if we get into a dynamic where I try to solve your problem and the problem occurs again, of course I want to solve it again and again. And that will keep going on into the future. So one of the questions here might simply be, if the problem will come to an end at one point, I'd rather know about it now. And let's talk about what is actually going to be happening in the future, because maybe this is where the real problem lies. Or maybe the problem lies with your inability to solve your problems on your own and be independent and not come to the table with problems. Maybe that's what needs to be talked about. And maybe short-term fixes are not the real issue. Maybe there's a deeper psychological issue. If someone has difficulties walking, they go and see a doctor. If someone has difficulties functioning in society, maybe they go and see a psychotherapist. But if someone can't walk and doesn't see a doctor, maybe they don't want to solve the problem. So far we've seen how you enter the argument and you destroy it from the inside. Instead of now bad, future good, we say, now there are two people. Both people have advantages and disadvantages. In the future, there are two people. Both have advantages and disadvantages. Sure, we're talking about your current disadvantages and your future advantages, but how about we don't forget me and my advantages and disadvantages now and my advantages and disadvantages in the future? Because maybe you're asking me to give up my current advantages and I don't even know if I will be having advantages in the future. All of this for your benefit, where you are gaining in the future. But now I want to reframe and I want to show you exactly the game that is being played. So let's start again. We have the future, there is you, there's a narcissist in both situations. We remember the narcissist claims that they've got problems and they want a better situation in the future. What is really going on is that right now they have significant advantages. And the future is simply a pretext. Because right now, you are willing to take some of your advantages and give them to them. You're already transferring what they want. You're already giving them what they want. The future is just a pretext. The future is just an excuse to make you give them what they want. And the disadvantages they have, they don't exist. It's just an excuse. If they're afraid that they can't pay their rent and they make you pay their rent, they don't care about paying their rent. If they really cared about paying their rent, they would find a sustainable solution on their own. They wouldn't be coming to you for a solution. They're not acting like people who actually want to change something. Right now is working perfectly for them. And the only thing that might change is if you stop playing their game, they're going to go and find someone else to abuse. That's all that's happening. The future they are selling you is purely in your head, to make you act the way they want you to act. But there is a better future for you. And the better future for you is the future where you eliminate part of the downside. And you stop making their problems your problems. And you eliminate the downside by giving their problems back to them. Letting go of it. It's their choice. If they don't want to have a job to pay the rent, you can respect their choice, even though you regret it. If they end up in the street, you can respect their choice, even though you regret it. If they want to believe that the only solution in the entire universe is you, you can respect their choice and you can regret it. Even if this were the case, that would be too much of a burden for you to carry. And it probably isn't the case, and probably they don't want things to be any different. They claim they do, but they don't act that way. So consider that right now is the situation that they want, and nothing is changing. The only reason why something would change would be if you change something. And remember that if you put a healthy boundary and they can no longer get their supply, they will simply go and look for someone else. And they will be trying to get that person to give them what they are looking for, using the same manipulation tools and techniques. The best thing you can do is cut off this dynamic. And how do you do this? Well, I suggest when the problems occur and they come to you with a solution which is only you, use this reframe. Take a deep breath, take a step back, use the reframe, and ask some of these questions. In all situations, even with a healthy person, these are perfectly valid questions to ask. What are the alternatives? What will happen if? I'm sorry, I'm concerned, I'm not comfortable. And if I do this, where does this bring us down the line? Use your ability to anticipate and foresee what might happen, and you can see what they tell you. If what they tell you is not credible, then don't believe it. And if it is credible, then you might want to check and see if it works. But you want to have some form of timeline. When you date someone, you want to have some idea of where it's going. Otherwise, you risk throwing a few years down the drain simply because you didn't want to project at all. That might not be doing you a favor.
If you want to share encouragementology with a friend who needs to know they're not alone in this journey of self-discovery. You can visit encouragementology.com or anywhere you stream your content to receive this episode and all others. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram for additional encouragement throughout the week. So I challenge you. Trust your inner compass, set firm boundaries, and seek support when faced with manipulation. Embrace your reality and stand strong against those who attempt to distort it. You own your power. I know you can do it. Thank you for listening to Encouragementology with Kendall Boyson, where we find positive ways to handle some of life's challenges.
I stumbled through until the path was clear. That's when I found you.